The first LEGO SmartPlay sets officially launched in March of 2026. They light up, make sounds, react to movement, and are supposed to make LEGO sets feel more alive. Which sounds cool until you realize LEGO has kind of been doing this for years. So instead of buying LEGO's new SmartPlay system, I accidentally built my own version using knockoff LEGO power functions. And it made me wonder, does LEGO actually need to become smarter? Or was LEGO already smart enough? Today I'm doing something a little bit different. Normally on this channel, I show the full process of building my LEGO MOCs, the planning, the trial and error, the rebuilding, and then of course, the finished build. But for this project, I have a problem. I didn't actually film myself building it. So instead of pretending this is a normal build video, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to make this more of a showcase video, but also talk about something bigger. Because this isn't just a Star Wars MOC. It moves, it has functions, it uses power functions. And it was partially inspired by LEGO's new SmartPlay Star Wars sets. So today I want to show you my LEGO Mos Pelgo Cantina from The Mandalorian Season 2, but also want to ask a question. What actually makes a LEGO brick smart? This MOC is based on the Mos Pelgo Cantina from The Mandalorian Season 2. Mos Pelgo, or Freetown, has always had this really cool western feeling to it. It's dusty, small, and kind of empty, and that's something I really love about The Mandalorian. At its best, this show feels like a western that just happens to take place in Star Wars. I recently bought the Mandalorian and Grogu speeder set, as well as the Bantha speeder, for fun with no intention of building a MOC of these scenes. As I was testing swooshability of the speeders and thinking about the SmartPlay sets, I got the idea for this MOC. And that's also where the idea for the movement came in. The main function of this MOC is that the Mandalorian can ride his speeder bike with Grogu around the cantina, similar to how he pulls up to it in Season 2 of the show. It's a simple movement, but it completely changes the way the build feels. Without the function, this is just a static diorama, which is fine, I love static MOCs, but once the speeder starts moving, it feels like the scene is actually happening, which is pretty cool. And that's really what I'm always trying to do with my LEGO builds. I'm not trying to recreate a building or a planet or a scene, I'm trying to capture the feeling of it. The second function is this spinning sci-fi windmill. This one is a lot more subtle, but I think it adds a lot of atmosphere to the MOC. The speeder gives the build action, the windmill gives it atmosphere. Together, they make the MOC feel alive. And that brings me to LEGO's new SmartPlay sets. LEGO recently introduced this new system where certain sets can connect with smart bricks that add lights, sounds, and interactive features. One of those sets is a SmartPlay Mos Eisley Cantina, which is actually part of what gave me the idea to talk about this in the first place. Because here LEGO is taking one of the most iconic Star Wars locations ever and adding this extra layer of digital play to it. You move something and the set reacts. You trigger something and it makes a sound. You use the smart brick and the set becomes more interactive. And I get it. Honestly, I do. For kids, that could be really fun. Lights and sounds can make a set feel more exciting. It can make the world feel more alive. Maybe it might even pull in kids who would not normally be interested in LEGO. I also think the flashy box art and marketing so far will draw in kids, but the reaction from a lot of adult LEGO fans has been pretty mixed. Partly because these sets are so expensive.
That's $37.
Awesome!
Partly because the smart brick is not always included, and partly because it raises a bigger question. Is LEGO better when it does more for you, or is LEGO better when it asks more from you? That's why this MOC became interesting to me, because I didn't use LEGO's new SmartPlay system. I didn't even use LEGO's official power functions because again, they are so expensive. I used off-brand power functions from Amazon that are compatible with official LEGO. Power functions are older, bulkier, clunkier, and definitely less polished than the new SmartPlay system. And yes, sometimes using them means hiding wires, battery boxes, and motors in place where they absolutely do not want to fit. But in a weird way, that's kind of what makes them fun. They don't do the creative work for you at all. They give you a problem. How do I hide the motor? How do I make the movement smooth? What speed can the gears handle? How do I make this function fit inside a Star Wars diorama without completely ruining the look of the MOC? And that problem solving is where a lot of the creativity happens. Of course, by problem solving, I also mean staring at the same mechanism for way too long, changing one piece, testing it, watching it fail, changing another piece, and then pretending that was the plan the whole time. This is also why I wasn't able to film the build process. It took me forever and required so much tinkering. Let's start with the speeder bike function. The idea here was to make it look like Din Djarin is riding around the outside of the Cantina. I was partly inspired by old racetracks that I would play around with when I was a kid. I wanted the movement to feel like he's arriving in town, circling the building, or passing through Mos Pelgo on his way to whatever problem he has to solve next. I did modify the set a tad to make it smaller and more balanced. What I like about this function is that it doesn't need to be complicated to be effective, it's just motion. But that motion creates a story. When it's still, you're looking at a model. When it moves, you're watching a scene. The windmill is a smaller detail, but honestly I think it might be just as important. Not every LEGO function needs to be huge or flashy. Sometimes a small moving detail can do more for the atmosphere than a giant mechanism. This spinning windmill helps the build feel like it belongs on Tatooine. It also gives the background some life. So even when you're focused on the speeder bike, there's still something else happening in the world. And that's what I love about LEGO functions. They don't have to be realistic, they just have to make the build feel more alive. Now that we've talked about the movement, let's actually take a closer look at the build itself. For the Cantina, I wanted the building to feel similar to the Mos Eisley LEGO set, but more elevated and detailed. Tatooine buildings have this really specific look. They are relatively simple, so you have to be creative about how to add detail. I tried to break up the walls with different textures, small color changes, and little details that make it feel worn down. I used these modified bricks to break up some of the regular tan bricks. The entrance was important because it needed to resemble what we see in the show to really enhance the speeder pulling up. Even if this isn't Mos Eisley, the shape still needed to feel like something that belongs in that same Star Wars language. The roof and silhouette were also a big part of that. I wanted it to feel low and heavy. For the ground, I used tan bricks, cheese slopes, and rounded slopes. I kept it simpler than how I usually build landscapes because of the play features. And then of course, the minifigures really help tell the story. Din Djarin and Grogu are the focus, especially because of the speeder bike function. But the smaller background characters are what makes the scene feel lived in. Even if they're not doing anything dramatic, they make the Cantina feel like a place where people actually exist. And if we look inside, there are a few smaller details that help sell the idea that this is a working Cantina, not just a facade. But now we come back to the main question. What makes a LEGO brick smart? Is it because it can light up? Is it because it can make sounds? Is it because it can react when you move it? Or is it smart because it gives you the ability to create something that did not exist before? Because this brick does nothing. It does not light up. It does not make noise. It does not connect to an app. It does not know whether it is part of a wall, a spaceship, a mountain, a cantina, or a speeder bike. But that's exactly what makes it powerful, because it can be any of those things. A smart brick reacts to movement, but a normal LEGO brick reacts to imagination. Now, I don't want this video to just be me saying SmartPlay is bad, because I don't think that's fair. For younger builders, lights and sounds could be genuinely exciting, and if SmartPlay gets more kids interested in LEGO, that's a good thing. Especially in a time where LEGO is now competing with so many other toys and electronics and video games and iPads and just so much technology, I understand why they maybe made this pivot. There is definitely something fun about a set reacting to you. I mean, clearly I like movement in LEGO. This entire mock is built around movement. So the problem is not that LEGO is adding technology, the problem is not the lights, the sounds, the interactivity. The real question is whether the technology expands creativity or replaces it. And honestly, this is why the smart brick conversation reminds me a little bit of AI. AI can be a tool. It can help people brainstorm, write, design, edit, and make things faster. But it also makes people ask a really important question. Am I still creating? Or am I just pressing a button and letting something else create for me? And I think SmartPlay raises a much smaller version of that same question. If the set tells you what sound to hear, what light to see, and what reaction is supposed to happen, does that make the play experience deeper, or does it make it smaller? With power functions, nothing about this was automatic. The motor did not know what I wanted, the pieces did not know they were supposed to become a mock. The speeder bike did not magically move. I had to build the function, test it, hide it, fix it, and then design the scene around it. And that process is the fun part. The builder is the engine, the imagination is the software, the bricks are just the interface. I think sometimes companies use the word smart to mean this has technology in it. Smartphones, smart TVs, smart homes, smart watches, and now smart bricks. But smarter does not always mean more creative. Sometimes smarter just means more complicated, more expensive, more dependent on one specific system. And to be fair, power functions have some of those problems too. They take up space, they need batteries, they can be awkward to hide, and when something breaks, it can be annoying to fix. This is not exactly the cleanest thing I have ever built, but the difference is that power functions still feel like Lego to me. They are mechanical, they are physical, they force you to think about how the build works. And when the function finally works, it feels like something you solved. That feeling is hard to replace with a pre-programmed reaction. So with all of that said, here is the finished Mos Pelgo Cantina. It's part Star Wars diorama, part power functions experiment, and part accidental response to LEGO's new SmartPlay system. The speeder bike brings the action, the windmill brings the atmosphere, the cantina gives the scene a destination. This side entrance door opens, which was inspired by the Mos Eisley set. The skeleton of the crate dragon over the bar can be easily removed so you can better access the bar seating. Grab some blue milk at the bar where you can see all the other drinks, menu items, and details. When you've had too much caf and need to use the bathroom, the door slides open revealing a toilet and sink. Once your minifigure is done and flushes, the pipes lead out to the waste bin. In simpler terms, I built a Lego poop chute.
Nasty!
The orange awning cloth is actually from the classic VW van set. The white antenna is another nod to the Mos Eisley set. And the custom Bantha also has a fun play feature. When I pull this lever, its tongue sticks out to sip the water. I can't tell if this creature is cute or cursed, so let me know in the comments what you think. I wish I'd filmed the build-in process for this one because there were definitely some interesting challenges, especially when building the functions. But in a way, I think this video ended up being more interesting because of that. Instead of just showing how I built it, this gave me a chance to talk about why I built it this way. Because to me, this is what makes LEGO special. Not just the finished model, not just the pieces, not just the functions, but the fact that a normal brick can become something completely different depending on who is holding it. So is LEGO's new smart brick a bad idea? Not necessarily. If it helps kids play, if it makes sets more exciting, or if it gets new people interested in LEGO, then I think there's definitely a place for it. But I also think LEGO should be careful, because the magic of LEGO has never been that the brick knows what it's supposed to be. The magic is that it doesn't. A LEGO brick is smart because it has no fixed purpose. It can be a sushi shop, it can be a plant, a mountain, a train, a speeder bike, a tiny piece of a much bigger story. So maybe the smartest LEGO brick is still the one that does absolutely nothing until you build something with it. But that's just what I think, and I'm really curious what you think. Are LEGO SmartPlay sets the future? Are smart bricks a good way to make LEGO more interactive? Or do you think LEGO is at its best when the imagination is doing most of the work? Thanks so much for watching, stay creative everybody, and I'll see you soon.